What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down some of Cooper Kupp's best route running from weeks 1 through 4 of the 2022 season. So I hope this video helps you guys out. I hope it can teach you a few new things. But also, fellas, if you're a wide receiver and you want to improve your route running in 10 days, check out that very first link in the description below for our How to Improve Your Route Running in 10 Days weekly long or bi-weekly long schedule. We give you 2 weeks of wide receiver on-field drills, sets, reps, and video examples of each one to improve your route running skills. So check out that very first link below if interested, fellas. Let's get started. So this first router is going to be Cooper Kupp running this like 10 to 12 yard out versus outside shade zone coverage. So like this is like if you're lined up on the outside spot, right? Maybe you're an X or a Z receiver and you got like cover 3, for example. So cover 3 is when this corner is responsible for the deep third of the field. So when I have a corner is responsible for that deep third, obviously he's trying to prevent the fade. He does not want to get beat deep, and he has outside leverage because in cover 3, there's one high free safety usually. So he's responsible for the middle of the field. He's outside shade, bailing out of there because he wants to force Cooper Kupp to the inside because that's where his help is, but he does not want to get beat deep. So if I have to run this out route, what a lot of wide receivers will think is that, oh, anytime a DB's in zone coverage, they have something called a blind spot. So a blind spot is the area where the DB cannot see. Now, Cooper Kupp is great at this, and we're going to show a second example of this in a second here. But when we have a DB who's lined up in zone and that blind spot is there, he's outside leverage. We don't want to attack his leverage when I have to run a route to his leverage, like an out route, a corner route, a comeback route. Because if I just run to that blind spot, what do you think he's going to do? He's going to keep his leverage. His sole responsibility in outside shade is to force you inside. So he will not give up the outside. He will just squeeze us to the sideline. And if I have an outside breaking route, like an out, like a corner, a comeback, I need to give the QB space to lead me. So as a wide receiver, we need to focus on attacking the inside shoulder, or in this case, the DB's left shoulder. We are trying to make sure that we make him think it's a fade by actually selling the fade and making it look like a fade until it's not. So when we come off the ball, Cooper Kupp does a phenomenal job of having a good pad level, staying in full stride, running in full speed. All of those things is what will get a DB to open up and get him to bail his hips. But we have to do that all the way until the last second, and I have to attack that inside shoulder. Because now when I decide to make this break point, instead of being here in his blind spot with only a couple yards to run out of the break, I actually have about 5 to 6 yards. So I break down, he could slip underneath, and I'm giving the QB space to throw me open. How you run a route versus like if a DB's lined up to the leverage of the side that we are trying to run, outside when we're running an outside route, inside we're running an inside route. You never want to attack his leverage. You want to pick a specific shoulder, whether it's inside or outside shoulder, and force that hip to flip by selling fade. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. That's a great job by Cooper Kupp attacking, pushing fade, getting that DB off that platform, and then giving Matthew Stafford enough space to throw him open. Okay, so now let's talk about the opposite scenario, right? So we said when a DB was outside shade, what was he trying to do? Force us inside. He's got help inside. Do not give up anything outside. So when I got a DB now who's lined up inside shade, what do you think he's trying to do? He's probably trying to force you outside, because the sideline would be his help in that case. He does not have any help over the middle when it is man coverage. So if I have to run a route like a dig, like a post, how would I go about that? And this is a great example of that. So Cooper Kupp comes up here, he hesitates, bursts up, and look where he's attacking. The outside shoulder of the DB. So when you're running this dig and you have inside shade, so many wide receivers think that you need to stem a DB. You need to angle your stem inside and try to step on his toes. While you do want to close the distance with a DB, you don't want to do that. Because here's why. Usually, obviously, it's not one-on-ones. It's not just you're out at the park running with somebody. It's a full game scenario. There are other receivers on the field, and they are running routes. So, like, let's say, for example, a slot receiver on the left side's running a drag, and you're running this dig. If you angle way to the inside, this DB is just going to keep his leverage, and guess what your stem's going to end up doing? Running into this drag, and a DB is going to be able, or a linebacker is going to be able to cover you both. That screws up spacing on the play. So on the out route, we don't necessarily have to worry too much about like spacing, but when you're out of the slot, you absolutely have to worry about spacing. So that's why you need to attack the outside shoulder. So when Kupp comes off of here, you see how he comes out with great speed. He starts out 100. Now, he gives this little tempo change and goes to 0. So that tempo change kind of puts the DB on alert and slows down his feet. When we slow down, the DB is going to slow down. So that tempo change is a great way to get separation in this scenario. So he bursts off the ball, starts to change tempo, and then he accelerates again. What does that do? That sells fade, right? Same idea, fellas. If a DB is off, whether it's off man, whether it is zone like the first example, the whole reason they are off is because they don't want to give up the deep ball. They don't want to get beat deep. They don't want to get beat deep by Kupp running just this seam deep up the middle of the field, and maybe we do like a dagger concept. They want to be able to sit there, prevent the deep ball, keep everything in front of them. But based on their leverage, that's how I can structure my route as a wide receiver. So attacks that outside shoulder. You see how he snaps this thing off. And again, giving the QB space to throw him open. He didn't run this route on the opposite side of this Cardinals logo. That's what he would have had to do if he would have stemmed way inside and that DB keeps his leverage. Make sure we know when to attack leverage and when to attack a specific shoulder. Now, for the wide receivers watching this, if I had to run, like what you might be thinking, well, when should I ever attack his leverage? A lot of people talk about that all the time. And if you had to run like a 10-yard out, that's when you would want to attack his leverage. Because if he's inside shade, running a 10-yard out, you would want to stem him to the inside because why? He would keep his leverage, but guess what that does? That creates more of a space for you back to the outside to actually run that out route. So I hope that helps. I hope that makes sense. Let's play this thing again, full speed. Great job bursting, hesitating, and then attacking the outside shoulder there from Cooper Kupp. Okay, so now this example I want to go over is this is not so much a route. This is more of a cut that he makes after the catch. Now, we get a lot of questions here from wide receivers about like, hey, coach, what can I do to get more separation after the catch? How can I get more yards after the catch? How can I make people miss? And this is kind of what you have to treat it as. You have to almost treat it like a route. So let's play this clip here from Cooper Kupp. He throws this kind of crossover move, makes the DB miss, and then ends up scoring. So why is this so important? Whenever you guys are making cuts at the top of the route, like let's say you're running like a post route, let's say you're doing a 1-2 off the line against press, you have to focus on being sudden with your feet and generating explosion with your feet. And that's the same thing that translates to yards after the catch. I'm running, I got a DB committing over the top. I got to be sudden with my feet. I have to sell the movement with my upper half, but it's got to be quick, and I got to be able to generate explosion with whatever I do. And that's what Cooper Kupp does right here. So he's throwing this like 1-2, just a nice, simple, just 1-2 cut. But I want you to see how he's striking the ground. You see how he's striking the ground with his whole foot down, but he's not on his heel and he's not on his tippy toe. He's right on that middle arch of the foot because that middle arch is where you generate explosion. When you strike on that middle arch, it allows you to do what, do you think? It allows you to push. So like Cooper Kupp sells this move to the outside, throws a little head fake, a cut to the outside. And this is not something he's thinking about, obviously. This is something that he's built with a ton of reps in the offseason, a ton of reps in practice. So it's an automated habit on the field. But when he makes this cut, shooting the foot in the ground, he's in a good pad level position. He's not straight up in the air. He's not reaching way outside his frame. So many wide receivers, or just so many people in general that play football, when they cut, this cut will reach. They try to over-exaggerate and try to really sell this movement, but they have no speed on their cut. You selling a movement, you selling a route, it all comes from the upper half because that's what the DB's watching. He is not looking at your feet. So when we could be sudden, we could strike the ground on that middle arch of my foot like he does. That creates a lot of explosion. I can make him miss, but I could also drive off of that. I could also push and get out of there so I could get back upfield and get more yards after contact, or after the catch, I should say. Let's play this thing full speed one more time. Great job by Kupp throwing that 1-2, showcasing that running routes and yards after contact, yards after catch are pretty much the exact same thing. Okay, so now last example I want to go over here with Cooper Kupp, and that is going to be this corner route in the red zone against cover 2. So I think one of the things, Cooper Kupp may not be, I think coming out of the combine, he ran like a 4.6 or a 4.7 40. I think it was a 4.6, right? And in the NFL, in college, you're going up against DBs who consistently can run in the 4.4s and the 4.5s, right? Pretty fast guys every single snap. That's who you're going to be going against, and they're probably going to put their best guys on Cooper Kupp week in and week out. For you to be successful, fellas, if you're not maybe the fastest guy on the field, you're not the biggest guy on the field, you lack kind of the eye test attributes. You have to have a very, very high football IQ. Now, Cooper Kupp's a much bigger dude than people think. I think he's like 6'2", he's built pretty good. He's not the fastest guy in the world. But his smarts, I think, is one of the things that's very underrated about him and how he knows how to create separation. So let's play this full speed. So this is cover 2 here, corner sitting in the flats, and we got kind of like a smash concept. So this is just such a great route because he does everything correctly. So many wide receivers don't know how to think about routes. You know what I mean? Unless it's like a predetermined thing. Unless a coach tells them, hey, this is a must inside release, or a coach tells them, hey, this is a must outside release. They don't know how to think about that from a coverage standpoint. So coming up to the line pre-snap, The play is Cooper Kupp is running a corner, and we have like a slot receiver or tight end, I believe is what it was, running a flat. So we were trying to put this guy in a bind. If he crashes on the flat, then the quarterback is going to look to the corner route. Now, a lot of times people have been taught, oh, if I'm running a corner, I should always take an outside release. But we know that from the very first example we talked about, that's not always the case. You don't always have to get outside. You could work inside. You can take an inside release on anything. And when it's cover 2 pre-snap, I see the DB's outside shade. His eyes are to the inside, looking at the number 2 or the tight end to make sure they don't go out to his zone. And I see that there's 2 high safeties. Okay, if I'm running this corner, if I try to force the outside release, he's going to get hands, carry me to the sideline, and I have no space for the quarterback to throw me open. So pre-snap sees that it's cover 2, and he does something we call like a wide step release, like a little jab to the outside, get that DB to hold his leverage, let's take the inside release. Because now we can square up the safety. Now I can run right at the safety and get into his cushion, close the gap, and give a head fake inside with plenty of space to accelerate out. But I know that my separation comes from what I can do to the safety and how I keep that timing off the line and don't screw up the read for the QB by forcing something. You have to understand play concepts as a wide receiver. You have to understand coverages as a wide receiver. It's very underrated. You could keep things simple too. You don't have to know everybody's responsibility on defense, but you got to know the secondary's responsibility because that's how you can structure your routes. And that's how you could create more separation. Great job there by Cooper Kupp running that corner against cover 2. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job using that wide step jab and then getting into that DB's cushion at the top to win on the corner. All right, fellas, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. We always appreciate the feedback. It's always great to hear from you guys as usual. And again, fellas, if you would like a full 2-week-long schedule on how wide receivers can improve their route running in 10 days, check out that very first link in the description below. I'll see you guys next time.